and I like Blue Teaming instant response, and I'm starting to explore some other roles. And in case you didn't know, if you were really tired on campus, but you didn't know where to take a nap, go to naps.ret.edu for a great map of where to nap safely.
Hello, sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I am Michael. I'm a first year at RIT. I'm a CSEC major. I'm interested in coding, archery, ice hockey. I played for 10 years of my life. I think I learned to skate when I was 3. And I'm also interested in pen testing and cybersecurity in general. In terms of RIT, right, again, I'm a first year CSEC student, and I just recently joined RIT Sec, maybe like, it's been like a few weeks, I think.
So let's dive into it.
Okay, so now when we're talking about the incident response lifecycle, there are 6 different steps. So the first is preparation, which involves prevention and planning. Then there's detection, containment, eradication, which involves recovery as well, cleanup, and then report.
Yeah, so the important thing to note about this, much like the attack life cycle, this is not a linear process. Things come back, and like you could be done dealing with one incident, and then you realize something, there's another part to it. You have to go back. You have to figure out where it is. You have to start over. You keep cycling through until you can make it to the end of it, and you can get out and reset. And like I mentioned earlier, it goes really well with the attack life cycle. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how the two cycles kind of work with each other as we go through. So here's just a friendly reminder of what the attack life cycle is, in case you guys forgot in 5 minutes from the end of the great presentation before this one.
Okay, so going into the first step of the incident response life cycle, we're talking about preparation and prevention. So it's really important to have a plan when it comes to incident response. These plans are usually based on the potential impact to the company or the person, the likelihood of an attack, and how important the systems or data affected by an attack might be. And you really have to be ready for it, especially in cybersecurity, because things change very quickly. And so you'll want to periodically and often review your prevention steps and incident response plan. And part of that is implementing the systems that help protect you, right? So some tools and techniques to help prevent attacks. So there are intrusion prevention systems, which sit right behind a firewall, and we'll get to that next. And it provides analysis that singles out or identifies dangerous content or information being sent, and then denies passage to that content. Firewalls, so what they do is they control and they limit access to network services and from other computers on the local network, so that people don't have access to things they're not supposed to. And yeah. So then there are also, in terms of physical security, there are security guards, which keep people out of places where they're not supposed to be. But there's also like people with ID cards and stuff like that. Like IDs are important, just because if you don't have an ID system, then someone can walk in without an ID, act like they belong there, and they become a very, very critical threat very quickly. And then there's two-factor authentication, which is really important as well, just because if you have like someone has a weak password or something like that, it's important to not only verify that they know their password, but also to verify that they are who they say they are when they're supposed to be verifying themselves. And in correlation to the attack lifecycle, this talks this correlates to the initial recon and compromise phase, where what you really want to do is make it hard for the attacker to get anywhere, because hopefully your firewall and intrusion prevention systems are set up really well and have correct permissions.
Yeah, what you just said. Doing great, Michael.
Thanks. And so the next step is detection. So what is detection? So I put the SpongeBob Patrick meme, wee woo, wee woo, just because, that's kind of what detection is. It sounds the alarms, it sends notifications for suspicious activity, and it regularly monitors for that suspicious activity. In terms of detection, it's really important to address the suspicious activity that's found, even if it doesn't seem like anything to begin with. And if it's really not anything, of course, you can verify that by addressing it. But there are scenarios where something might not seem important, but what winds up happening is that an attacker gets inside a system and stays there for a long time. Is able to establish a foothold and cause all sorts of damage. But yeah, detection is super important. And again, just don't ignore any of the suspicious activity that's reported. So what tools can we use for detection? So there are different intrusion detection methods. There's signature-based and there's anomaly-based. And the difference, signature-based detects attacks by looking for patterns such as byte sequences in network traffic, or for like known malicious patterns used by malware. And this is really, really good because it easily detects known common attacks. But the weakness that it really has is that if there's an attack that's new that is being used, then it has a lot of trouble detecting anything just because there's no signature for it to compare. That's where kind of anomaly-based intrusion detection method came into play, which is where a model of a trustworthy activity or a network, what the network is supposed to look like, how much information is being sent. So a model is created of that by this system, and then the anomaly-based system, like anomaly-based intrusion detection system, will compare the current behavior of the network or a host or whatever to that model, and if there are significant, if there are differences, then it'll notify administrators or the user. Although it is important to note that it's really helpful because it can identify like unknown attacks, but it also sometimes will cause for false positives to occur, where no malicious activity is actually taking place, but because the activity that's happening is different from the normal trustworthy activity or the model, it'll send an alert where there doesn't really need to be one. So then there are also different intrusion detection system types. So there's a network intrusion detection system, and a popular example is Snort, and there's a host intrusion detection system, and a common example is OSSEC. And for network intrusion detection systems, what they do is they monitor traffic to and from all devices on a network. And that again, both signature and anomaly-based methods are used in that. to help identify and detect things. And then there's the host intrusion detection system, which runs on an individual host or like devices on a network. And it monitors the inbound and outbound packets or like network information. And will alert the user or administrator if suspicious activity is detected using any of the methods that I talked about above. And what it also does is it takes a snapshot of the system, and every so often it'll compare the current system to that snapshot, which is, again, this is a kind of like a signature, no, an anomaly type method. And it'll notify if critical system files are modified or deleted. It'll send an alert to administrator to investigate. And in relation to the attack lifecycle, most likely, or hopefully, an attacker has just gotten in rather than being in there for like forever. And they're trying to establish a foothold and escalate privileges. A lot of, like, sometimes companies will say that the detection systems are not really worth it just because of the cost, but that's not true at all. It's really, really important. And there's a lot of damage that can be done by not being able to detect malicious actors. Okay.
Yeah. So once we have detected our situation, we know that there is malicious traffic, there's malicious people, and there's bad things happening within our network and within our services. We have to start dealing with this and responding to it. So we need to identify the scope of the situation. So how many services are affected? How does this reach our customer facing services? How many hosts are impacted or infected with this malware? What's going on? Where are the hotspots? Like what is the situation? So once we to do that, we really need to look at like the logs, and we need to go and we need to examine what's happening. Like we're like very hands-on keyboard, just kind of trying to analyze everything. So once we start to get a picture, and we see like, oh, we've got a bunch of traffic coming from this server, and what that's not supposed to be happening. And if we can know that from looking at what normal traffic looked like in the past versus what's happening right now, we can be like, okay, we can either change the firewall rules on this and potentially delay them for about a half an hour because they won't realize that the firewall rules are down, like the firewall's up, and or we could go and we could turn it off. And I mean, if there's no power to the machine, then it can't do anything. But with that, yeah, I mean, you have to weigh the calculations like, oh, is this service or host or this box important to any customer facing information or services? And if so, would I lose customers because I'm turning this box off? And like I mentioned earlier, well, not earlier, one of the things that you can implement a valid security model where you make it difficult for your attackers to move laterally across your networks by segregating out everything into different subnets and establishing firewall rules for each department. So that way an attacker can't come in through the HVAC system and then pivot throughout your network to your cache registers. As one example. So in this situation, during containment, hopefully you're on the first go around in the attack lifecycle. There's going to be things on your boxes, persistence is going to be there. Hopefully they haven't moved laterally beyond what you have detected or what you can handle, but that's going to have happened and you need to deal with it. And if you can manage that situation and you can get your arms around it, then you can prevent them from escalating privileges further, from establishing more persistence or from moving around your network in other unexpected ways. So once we have wrapped our arms around the situation and we are now starting to remove the bad things from our system and we're like really we're moving towards the end zone in this response. We need to get rid of any things that could happen to our systems. We gotta get the malicious actors out of there, remove any backdoors, remove any persistence, remove their users, and eventually start bringing our systems back online so that we can return our services to like our customers or just our other employees who can't do the job because of the hack or the breach. Some things that we can use to do this part of the response effectively, looking at our logs, at from our routers and our switches, and like throughout the network to figure out where they might have gone on their host devices, and to see like what boxes could have been popped or what boxes moved too laterally. Then looking at network logs to see like what specific boxes were impacted, what's still happening on those devices. You can you can analyze your network traffic to see if you've handled all of the backdoors or if data is still leaking somewhere. Say you have one of your servers got popped and it's still calling out to a C2, you can detect that and then go clean it up. And then during this phase, you got to be taking notes and you got to be writing down like what you see and like keeping track of what you found. So that way, when we get to the report writing, we get to the we're trying to learn from our mistakes, we have clues and we have evidence and we have an idea of what they did. So we can use forensics tools like the SANS forensics kit to analyze our boxes and to really figure out like what happened. And when we start to bring our services back online, hopefully we have backups of the data that we lost. If we lost data of system configurations, that way we're not starting from scratch. And we can then go patch those backups and secure them so that the situation doesn't happen again. So we should be removing persistence. We should be finding our vulnerabilities and removing them, patching them, and making our systems more secure and making our systems more secure just in general. And if we do this effectively, then it would be harder the next time around when they want to come back. So in the cleanup phase, we basically finish patching our holes. We do a double check on our network, do a double check throughout our services or boxes to see and make sure and verify that we have actually patched any of the holes and any of the vulnerabilities. And I mean, and for this, we're really using the same tools as we were when we started to recover and deal with the situation. So we're doing our logs, we're using our backups, we are doing some analysis, and being like, oh, this was normal before the attack happened. Now this is happening. That's weird. This is still a problem. Oh, this service still exists, but it shouldn't be on. Things like that. So at this point, if we've responded to our incident, if we've actually got all the problems, and there's not a well hidden persistence hanging around somewhere, then we have successfully broken the attack lifecycle and our attackers have been dealt with and our systems are becoming more secure and there's no more persistence. They're not moving laterally because they don't have access. There's no more footholds. There's no more changes being made to your system. Only authorized users are there, and overall, you've done a good job if you can get to this point and you can ensure that you haven't left any holes elsewhere and other places on your network. So at the end of it all, we need to take a look back about like what happened, where our systems failed, like where our defense systems failed, what systems were vulnerable that led to the initial breach, and what attacks happened during it that we weren't prepared for, what things happened during attack and incident that we were prepared for and did a good job with. And basically we write documentation, write reports, and we take note of what went well, what could be better in the future, just so that we can improve and have a more secure infrastructure. And this is the part that we can really benefit from taking good notes and writing down what happened during the incident when we're hands on keyboard and really dealing with like the very technical side of it. And once that is done, we go back to the beginning and we start monitoring our logs again. We'll never stop, but we go back to trying to detect things. We go back to trying to be prepared. We do more pen tests. We run vulnerability scans. We analyze our own traffic, and we get ready for the next attack. And that concludes our presentation. So, are there any questions? I'm gonna go check the Twitch and Discord. Okay, well, seeing none, I want to thank Michael for doing a great job. He, like Olivia, is also a first year on his fourth week doing a co-presentation. He wrote 2 of the slides all by himself, and I was like, hey, here's this topic, go run with it. And he did an amazing job, and I am looking forward to what he does in the future. So, Michael, great job.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for presenting. Yes, awesome.